this was a lawn, conventional lawn, and I was mowing it with a push mower. You know, the other thing about life in the valley here is that a lot of people don't water their lawns, which is good, but then it's brown. All summer when you actually want to use a lawn, you have a dead lawn. And then it greens up in wintertime and the spring, but you don't really go outside that much and use it. So a lawn is a kind of weird, maladapted situation for this climate, this northern Mediterranean climate. And so we're always looking for alternatives. So there are meadows made of yarrow, there are meadows made of thyme, there are meadows made of wildflowers, and they all have their place. So the question is, what does the average person who's not a gardener want to have as a replacement for the lawn, instead of a lawn? And maybe that you can still walk on it. Maybe you're not going to play croquet on it or something, but it has the look of a lawn, and it has some of the function of a lawn. So this lawn here is actually quite interesting. This is a native sedge called Carex praegracillus. Oh, wow. And it's native all up and down the west coast, and I'm not sure of the extent of the range. And we were using the species of this, the straight species, Carex praegracillus, in lawns and meadows when I was working in Southern California, and then did some of them up here. Well, up here, it rains so much that it really grows probably a little too much, and it gets too big and too thick, and it starts to creep out and invade areas. So, interesting story. A nursery grower friend of mine in Santa Barbara was growing that plant that I just mentioned, and he found a dwarf plant in his block of plants, and he looked at it and he said, "This is interesting," and he started propagating from it. And it didn't get any bigger than what you see here, which is less than a foot. So he started marketing that, and he called it Carex chisai. He's Japanese, and in Japanese, chisai means tiny, so it's the tiny Carex. This lawn is on the north side of the garage, and the sun, of course, does this, and in the summertime, it's directly overhead. At the solstice, it's actually a little bit north of overhead, which means that the sun will kick into this quote-unquote shady bed full of ferns and other things during the hottest part of the year. In the wintertime, the sun is very low, and this entire meadow is in shade. When I had lawn here, the sun grasses didn't like the shade, and the shade grasses didn't like the sun, and it was always changing, and so the lawn never worked well. This sedge, this Carex chisai, does not care whether it's in sun or shade. Therefore, the growth is the same everywhere, other than the path down the middle, which I walk on all the time.
Sure.
So that in itself would justify the existence of this, because almost nothing is that agreeable, if you will. And I really liked it so much. So a year and a half ago, I dug up the lawn. I actually killed it with cardboard and mulch and gave it several months, and then pulled that off, and everything was dead. It was not an invasive bunch of grasses. It was pretty easy stuff to kill. And then I got these 4-inch pots, which you can see the results here, and I planted 500 about 1 foot apart, and let it go. And here you see the outcome, which is very pretty, very satisfactory. And other than pulling a few weeds, and I'm looking at one right now that I'm going to go pull, I haven't done anything to this at all. And the other thing, it's pest resistant, disease resistant, it meets all those criteria that we've been talking about. It's long-lived, it's not invasive, it doesn't require, and I almost never say this, but it does not require any care so far. It turns partly brown and stays partly green in the wintertime, and I thought, as spring came on this year, I thought, well, maybe I'll groom it up a little bit and get some of the dead stuff out, or maybe even cut it back. And I thought, no, that's antithetical to what I was trying to do here. I'm going to do nothing and see what happens. Well, look what happened. All the brown stuff self-composted, it returned its nutrients to the soil, it greened up beautifully. It still needs to fill in. It's only a year and a half old. I'm going to actually interplant this with some other native things so that it's a little more diverse, maybe some wild strawberry or something. I haven't figured it out yet, so that it isn't just all Carex. But even as it is, it's really quite attractive.